Hello and welcome to another discussion of The Great Ordeal. This is the third book in the Aspect Emperor series and the sixth book in the second Apocalypse series, if you're counting it that way. The series, of course, is by R. Scott Bakker, and we read approximately 100 pages each week. Today's discussion is going to be for chapters 7 through 11. With me, of course, I have the usual group of friends. Steve Shwata. This week also we learned just what Steve means when he says just wait. So yeah, could you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm Steve, and it's my second time reading the series, and I always look forward to Tuesday nights. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm Carl. First time reading the series. I also very much look forward to Tuesday nights. This is always one of the highlights of my week.
Yeah, same for me. I'm Dan, and read the book many times, and first time discussing it all.
You also have to look forward to Tuesday nights, Dan. It's a requirement.
Oh, it's the worst. Well, I have to, because every other night is so great. That's just why.
I didn't know, Dan, this was your first time like discussing the book like properly in like a chat or wow, that's cool.
I don't think I've ever encountered anyone that read it before. I did talk about it at a book club at my university, and then everyone said they hated it. So that was it. I mean, they were different. They like different things.
Right. That makes sense.
So.
Yeah, this is definitely a very particular book series. You have to have a very particular taste.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve had a question to start the discussion off with.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of one of the longtime supporters of the channel and of us, Eric, had a comment about whether or not. Well, without going too into detail, I think there's some POV changes and some other things that are a little wonky at times in this book. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that because famously I think there's minimal editing in these last two books. And has anyone else noticed a difference in kind of pacing and wording and everything else?
Do you know specifically what he was referring to? I think he said something regarding some weird POV.
Yeah.
Do you know exactly which one he was talking about?
I think it was referring, because I think it goes from, and this is something I didn't catch the first time or second time, but actually Daniel and Katerina both caught it because they're much smarter than I am. But about kind of it goes from first person to third person to omnipresent to it kind of bounces around. So it can be a little, especially these last couple chapters it's kind of like an acid trip. It's a little weird in a good way. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm just.
I mean, I've definitely noticed the lack of an editor. Whether it's just way more typos than there were in previous books, or I think I've commented on there's way more italics to the point that it's overused for me. It's clearly one of his writing quirks. And, you know, that's something that I in particular, like even more than the typos, that for some reason annoys me. It just gets to the point where it's like he's trying to make everything sound really like important, and there are times where I feel like it's just not necessary. So some of the pacing. I in particular have a criticism of how the last chapter we read, 11, is paced. To me, that chapter just like you could have excised it from the book, and I imagine the book would read the same. We didn't really learn anything new. I think the only thing we learned, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think the only new thing we learned was that Esminet's legend has spread outside of I'm having a brain fart, whatever city she's in right now.
Momnin?
It is Momin. Okay, that's right, because she's from Suma. That's what I was thinking. And okay, yeah, so Momin. Which also, I guess I would have to check the time, but that felt like a really fast time for her to become like famous throughout the empire. But for this particular thing, right? Stopping the, I'm getting way ahead. But I don't know about the particular POV thing though. I saw the post you sent what Eric was saying, and I don't know. I'd love if Eric could, leave another comment, explaining what exactly he's referring to, because I don't know exactly. I definitely noticed like tense changes, but I feel like Bakker always switches between a very omniscient point of view and a more personal kind of in the character's head point of view, and he does it pretty in a pretty free flowing way. I feel like a lot of the times, although sometimes there are hard divides. Like the big battle scenes are always very omniscient, right? Like you're getting all the different, this group did that, blah blah blah. This person died, eating someone's ear, like shit like that. But beyond that, I've noticed that Sword Wheels sometimes switches between present and past tense, but I also wondered if that was intentional, because he has an aspect of divinity inside him. Because obviously we know Mamara is certainly, when written intentionally, that she is entirely in the present tense, and the distinct thing with her is the judging eye. So presumably that's what, that aspect of divinity is what separates the POV, like why he writes present versus past. But beyond that, I haven't noticed anything, so I don't know. Varsha?
I had some issues with the last Ishterabin chapter that I'm not sure if that could very well be super deliberate and that's how he wants the chapter to read, but there was so much new terminology there, which makes sense. This is the first time we are reading a non-men group, but like normally when that is done, you can get from the context what said terminology is referring to, like when it's done well. So you don't need like a scientific definition alongside it. But I feel like he threw around a lot of terminology that wasn't explained, sure, but also not enough context was given to help understand. Like what is a siku, for instance? And I think it's too early to say one way or the other whether that is like a lack of editing thing or if he'll explain it later. I was this tempted to go to the appendix and look up all the terms, but I listened to Steve and I didn't do it. For once.
I think we know what a siku is. That one thing.
Yeah, I think we do know that.
I'm with you on like in general. There were a lot of proper nouns thrown around that we'd never heard before, and it definitely got overwhelming at times. But siku specifically, I think, is like a mage, like one of the like Ishroi mages that like works with men. Like, am I okay? Dan is making a face like that's not. What
No, maybe I'm wrong.
I thought
I've been wrong before.
When Oinorol, I always have to be careful to not have a little slip pronouncing his name. That when he's made the Siku for is that what it is?
Yes, you're right.
A human companion.
Yeah, I just remember because Oinorol is like made to be. Sorwell Siku in the big court scene, and we are given like it's like in passing. It's like one sentence, kind of a description of like what it is, sort of, or maybe it's not even explicit. It's just like in context. I don't know, but there was a lot. Sorry, I don't want to like overly contradict you there, because I think I agree with you, and I definitely found it hard to follow the actual actions of the end of the Ishtarabin chapter. As soon as they went like in the deep underground, I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like there are a bunch of non-men who are like losing their minds, but other than that, like I don't know. But that's not unusual in the series. There are scenes where like, particularly when magic is involved, I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. I think that part is quite similar to the oh god, the name is missing. The alternate Moria.
Kilauges.
Kilauges, yeah.
I feel like I could follow that more easily though.
Some parts, especially where the non-men were involved, and then with them running and everything inside like the deep parts, it's like I don't know what's happening. And kind of here,
That's
like
fair.
it's very confusing, very claustrophobic, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Kind of
definitely.
hard sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like sorry, go ahead,
No,
Steve.
go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
I was saying like there's a part when they're running away and they're on top of a mound of something, and then he turns around and he sees like a light, and there's some sort of explosion and
Yeah.
blood, and it's like, what's going on? Who knows?
Yes, exactly. That's I know exactly the scene you're talking about. That was one of the ones that stood out. I was like, I have no idea what's happening here. Like it seems really dramatic, but yeah.
I assume it's like a crazy queer mage that doesn't know what's going on and just going
Right.
crazy, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. I think. I mean, I kind of took it as it was intentionally confusing. It was supposed to feel overwhelming and, like it's a lot. Like I would imagine that's how Sorreal feels in that.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe I'm just making excuses.
No,
The
I mean,
books, but-
that's a good point because, like, we are still Sorreal's POV and he knows things that he shouldn't. So, this is a good way to tell us what he knows, except we have no clue either. At least I didn't. And I didn't have the patience to figure out. I feel like if I had read it more closely or reread it a few times, some of those I may understand what the terminology meant. But at least for me, it would take that rereading. It's not something that became clear later on with the context and repetition. Maybe in future Ishtarabin chapters, it might. Like, it's only this one. So I can't judge just this one in isolation. But
And the appendix is safe to read.
Okay.
It won't spoil anything for you.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Before we go any further, are we reading 12 and 13 next week? It looks about 98 pages,
Yeah, sounds
I
good.
think.
That works.
Something.
Does it leave about 100 pages for the next one? Yeah, I guess. It would.
Chapter 14 starts at 383. It'll leave about 80 pages for the
Okay.
last bit.
Great.
Sounds
That's
good.
perfect.
Okay.
Cool. Any other thoughts about the editing or the POV thing that Eric was referring to?
I don't know. The only thing I remember is that, especially the next book, I think there's a lot of like, I don't know how you would call them, but like phrases or things that he likes to write that come up very frequently, and you'll start to notice it.
Oh, that reminds me. I noticed forsooth like 3 times in this section.
That's funny. Yeah.
Oh, the Weeping Mountain.
The Weeping Mountain.
The
It is cool. I'm excited where that plot is going. It was an exciting chapter, and certainly going to find, the crazy mage to like bring out to kill the other crazy mage is like, what a strategy. I mean, that is, that's a crazy strategy, We'll see how it works out.
And the reasoning of like taking Sorwheel, because it's kind of, again, it's very circular logic.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess if it works, it works. It's just interesting.
It's like he has divine plot armor, so I think that'll extend to me. I'm not confident about that.
Yeah.
I was not as I feel like if anything, I would think that the people who are surrounded by the gods chosen are more likely to die than a lot of other people. I would have the reverse thought, but maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know.
We'll see.
Oh no.
We'll see. Yeah. Did you follow that, Varsha? Like what the quest is now, I guess, for them?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, what Carl summarized it as, that's kind of what I
Yeah.
got. Yeah.
Okay.
And the dude is his father that they are looking for. And there was also some deliberate treachery of Nilgekas, and again, I feel like all of that was very, very interesting, but I got bogged down by the terminology. But but it did have my attention until that. I think it as they were climbing down the mountain. Oh, what on earth is a peering?
I think it's like a balcony.
Okay.
I think we're like internal balconies in this sort of big chamber. That's how I imagine it.
Okay, makes sense.
Like a big hole inside in the mountain. But I think like Neil, because did he betray or something? I thought he was just like he started going crazy.
He got betrayed by the guy who's currently on the throne.
Ah, yeah, he got betrayed. Yes.
Did I use the wrong preposition? Sorry.
Maybe I heard wrong. But I think he started going crazy, and then his, I guess the guy, what's his name? The guy we have now.
I don't even want to try saying
his guy. The nice non-man.
Honorable.
Yeah. He stopped helping him, I guess, because he was going crazy. And I think he started like killing or doing something to the Mwama. And I guess we know that the liquid they were using, like
that
was also like melted fat from the humans.
Unbelievable. When I read that, my jaw hit the floor. Bakker continues to find new ways to come up with just like fucked up things that I can't. That's crazy. It's just that's crazy.
So,
and it's kind of like very like he says that, and then like 2 sentences after, it's like, oh well, who cares anymore? Because like kind of the non-men don't like. Yeah, it's bad for them, but it's not that bad. You know what I mean?
So I had a question. In this world, you apparently literally kind of sort of become what you eat, because the kiri makes them more, I guess, more like the non-men. I imagine that's what it's doing, and while also being addictive somehow. And the shrank meat is apparently driving everyone crazy. So is that just a general thing, or do these... They arguably share genetics, right? Because the shrank are born from the non-men. So are the non-men becoming more like the Mwama for consuming them, or is that a thing? I don't know what.
I assumed it was a non-man characteristic. That's what I assumed, but I don't think we know for certain. And I don't think they eat the Mwama. I think they just do fucked up stuff.
Oh, yikes, that's even worse.
I mean, I have no doubt that some erratic has
maybe some,
you know, you never know what they're going to do. Who knows? It's certainly terrible. They really fall off the deep end.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also kind of like, you know, even when the non-men were not crazy, they were still doing fucked up shit to the mom, even when they were like at the peak of glory and whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
they were never good.
They bred the Mwama to be the perfect little slaves when they were normal, you know, when they weren't, presumably. I mean, I guess we don't know the exact timeline maybe of that, but they've enslaved the Mwama for a long time, so not good. All right, I just have to say this since I every time I read Oinarl, I'm sorry, I'm dragging this into the gutter, but I constantly am just thinking oral anal every time I look at his name. I wish everyone could have seen the simultaneous reaction of the sheer disappointment falling over. I every time, and so I can't forget his name because that's what I see every time I read his name. I just felt like sometimes like Bakker he really got me with that one.
Why, Carl? Why?
I'm sorry. Like I said, my brain is in the gutter, and unfortunately, this series doesn't help drag it out of the gutter.
No.
If anything, it encourages those bad habits.
I thought you were gonna say something like you imagine him different because he's like kind of more friendly or something, and it's hard to imagine him like the other non-men, but I guess not.
No, and you know, if no one else in this fandom has ever brought that up, I'm proud to contribute. because that to me really is important information. But I like him. I'm sad. I'm sad he's like so miserable and is convinced he's the worst. It is kind of shocking to think that like, oh, because he isn't this badass warrior, you know, the way he frames it, right? That he's like a lesser non-man. That's the reason he hasn't gone crazy. And I definitely think, despite his POV in some way, maybe is speaking to a point Bakker is trying to make about how, you know, these great heroic figures are also much more prone to insane, you know, evil, you know, insane violence, corruption, things like that, right? It's sort of a literalization of like absolute power corrupts absolutely.
He's also the youngest or one of the youngest, right?
He's last born.
Yeah. So he's the youngest. So that also helps, I guess.
Yes, that definitely does help, no doubt.
But I think he says like there's like maybe a dozen or a bit more like non-men which are not crazy. So, and it's like what we see down in the Warmery, right? It's like it seems like there's hundreds of non-men there just completely gone. Yeah.
That it's sad. It's messed up the way, you know, when Sorwell's looking at all of them, he thinks, you know, they just remind him even more of Shrink. You know,
does it remind you also like, because for example they say, oh, we need to get to a boatman, and they go down. It's like it reminds me a lot of like Dante's Inferno and like that whole imagery, right, of going to hell and going through different like levels of.
That's it. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't made that connection. That's interesting. The thing I thought of was it reminded me in some ways of like a fucked up version of like the oh, how do you pronounce it? The Aushi, the fairies, like the Irish fairies that like live underground. And so, you know, taking the lore of this like this old beautiful race that lives, you know, underground in these great, you know, palatial areas. It seemed like to me in some way like a fucked up version of that. Obviously, it's got kind of a dwarven thing going to, going with the Tolkien references. Said we don't have actual dwarves. I would love to see how terrible his dwarves are.
Are the non-men dwarves and elves combined? Because they are short, but they look a bit like elves, maybe.
Well, the non-men are short?
Well, they're not short, but aren't they shorter than men?
I thought they were tall.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're tall.
Oh, the Shrank are short?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Did the inner staircase thing, that sounded familiar. Did we see that before in this series, or am I thinking of something else?
I mean, we've seen similar things in Seleucus, right? I think some of it, like some of the motifs, like for example, the animal sculptures, or not sculpture, bas reliefs or something with multiple animal phases all in one of movement. I think I remember that one seeing, and like, a lot of the art and a lot of structures I think are kind of similar. Maybe that reminded you.
Yeah, maybe. Like, I think it was just the fact of the staircase itself, like inside the mountain going inwards. Oh, but it might be the what they arrived at finally in Kellhus just to go up. Might be that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did have a really important staircase there. That's right.
Very long.
Very long.
I don't think this one is as long.
No?
They went down it in one chapter instead of I don't know how long it took. The other one.
The other one was in one chapter because that chapter. Yeah, that's how.
I thought it was in two.
No. That's how the book ends. Is they go up the stairs at the end. They're fleeing the Wraith King, and they think they kill him because she does her weird, you know, Tear of God thing, and then And then I laughed at the end because that's how the whole book ends when, oh no, Cleric is still alive.
Yeah.
After 4,
You guys got some Tylenol?
yeah, exactly. Like it's crazy. That sequence is hilarious to me.
But I think that staircase was like from the bottom of a mountain to the top, while this one is just in the middle. I think the other one actually, I think I didn't mention, it's like this pretty much the same as the Lord of the Rings staircase in which Gandalf goes up from the depths of, whatever, to the top fighting the Balrog. It's very similarly described.
Oh, that's cool.
But I think this one is like more like a much wider, straight down or something staircase. I don't know if it's straight down, but it's like feels shorter to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt almost longer to me because of the darkness, I guess. But they were walking towards the light. They were going towards darkness. I think it was in the what came before section this time that I realized that the blue light they kept seeing was the sky, not either of the stars. I'm assuming the native heaven is a star. I thought it was referring to a star, but because it kept saying there's a point of blue light, but I didn't realize. I thought it was open sky and they were seeing a light in the sky, but they just got to see such a small fragment of it that there was a point of blue light. Anyway.
I'm like 80% sure you've said the same thing like
last week?
2 months ago.
Oh.
No, like several months ago or something. Talking about the staircase in Seleucus.
Oh, did I already have this realization in Warrior Prophet?
I'm like, I remember it.
Okay. White Luck Warrior. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Maybe you just had a Kellhus moment, you had a vision of the future.
Yeah, maybe. It could have been more useful. Useless vision.
Everything I say is useful.
Not to me. But... Okay.
Any other?
Yeah, and I think...
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say... no, actually, skip that. Ignore.
Any other thoughts about... I mean, I guess we skipped to Ishtar Benth. Anything else? I feel like I said everything that hasn't occurred to me.
Me too.
So I'm not sure if it was in the Ishtar Benth chapter, but when Serwa has the mask on and he can't remove it, otherwise Serwa will perish. Do we believe them?
That.
Yeah, what was that about? Is it a threat, or is it that the mask is somehow tied to keeping her alive?
It must be like a threat. Like if you take it, then you're not going to have the ability to save her or something. I don't know.
I definitely know that, he was basically at some point was saying like, if you don't cooperate, she's going to die.
Yeah.
Like, the only way she's going to survive. But
Oh, and about Serwa, like now we're having all these flashbacks on her, right? Talking to
those were interesting.
Her dad.
Yeah.
And I guess Kellhus knew that the consult was in disturbance, it seems.
It's unclear to me if these are flashbacks or she's like hallucinating her dad.
Maybe.
I
possibly.
I don't know.
Is it the consult that's torturing her? No.
No one is actually successfully torturing her, is my understanding, because she's singing them off. But I don't know.
The last one, Moegas. Yeah. The last one from Serwa felt like it was a flashback because it was like her telling her dad that Sorwheel was not like he loved them, and then he was saying, "Oh, that you should do those things to make him hate you," right? But I guess this one we don't know. Like it seemed like if they are flashbacks, then it seemed like Kellhus knew everything, and it's like, okay, what's her plan then?
In this
it was
in the first
weird.
or second flashback, she said she was having pretend conversations with her father
Okay.
to see like basically about the situation, and in her head he's responding how she thinks he would. But it
Okay, that
also
makes sense.
but it also has the feel of, I almost thought Kellhus is actually talking to her through the flame thing that he uses to spy on people, but I don't think there's enough evidence there for that.
Okay, that's good. I thought it was flashbacks, but if it says that.
I think the first one was where he says that you have to make him hate you, which means
Oh.
I think that gave us more information, didn't it? Like, it also confirmed for us that Kellhus was also necessarily
Yeah, I guess
fooled
so.
by Sorvil's face. And
Yeah.
so Sorvil has two faces now, one with the
There's like 3 faces.
three faces. How could I yeah, what there were, yeah, I guess it's the same thing. What the guy tells him about the no god, and how Yatwar, because
True.
she can see across time, cannot imagine the existence of the no god.
Oh yeah, that was huge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, we knew it all the time, and that's why a lot of the things that you guys were speculating, why are the gods doing this and what that, right? Makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I fully follow the reasoning though. Like, it's, if they exist across all times,
Yes.
I guess they lack the perception of the negative of it.
I think what he's saying is that the no god exists outside of it, inside and the outside. So he's somewhere else. He's like in a third place or something. So the gods cannot see it, which means since the gods exist in the future and the past at the same time, if they cannot see it in the future, they cannot see it in the past. So they cannot see anything regarding the no god. It seems like they cannot see it. Right? And they never could see it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I can't even fathom what they think the fucking apocalypse was. I mean, I guess just the consult.
Yeah. I think they said it, right? They say like, oh yeah, they couldn't see it in the first apocalypse. They thought it was just the consult or something, right? And so they reacted. Like I think you said like the prophets and the priests didn't say anything about the no god because they couldn't imagine him.
It is a huge flaw. Like that is to be omniscient with the exception of this one. I mean, that is enormous. That definitely that has consequences. I imagine will have consequences.
And then he says literally like, well, then Kellhus is your savior because he's the only one that can do something about it, pretty much, even if the gods are against him. Right? So what is Sorwa going to do now?
Stop himself from stabbing.
I guess, but I mean, if the gods see the future like that, it's already sort of predetermined, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
But
I mean, it seems like he could be possessed too. Like the gods can do some crazy shit. So.
Yeah. Also, how do you tell your god that you know better than him what's going on?
If they see across time, though, at the moment that they destroy Kellhus, like that, let's say the no god actually, sure, they can't actually see the no god proper, but they could see the after effects of it. So, are they seeing the end of time where the no god might happen and then fail to predict anything that may happen after the no god shows up the second time around? Or do they see it anyway and are failing to attribute the showing up of the no god to their killing Kellhus?
That's a smart question.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the latter. But that's just my guess at this point. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a paradox either way. I mean, their whole existence is a paradox. Because, like, I mean, what do they think they have to know of the concept of the no god, right? Unless they they go na 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 every time they hear about it, right? Like people talk about the no god, like the no god is a story. So do they just think, oh, the no God is a metaphor. Like, what do they think is going on with the, all the babies being stillborn?
Maybe
That's
it's
not
just
that's.
like blank, like censored or something. The
Oh,
word.
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is like, is it just like anything that happens? It's what the fuck is the no God to do this? Like, it's crazy. It actually, in many ways, I feel like raises more questions than it answers. But it definitely answers some questions, as you pointed out, Dan. A lot of the stuff we were speculating about, makes more sense now. Why they don't do anything about it, because they can't.
Yeah, and it seems like Kellhus knows about this too. So,
Which, in a way, that makes the no God the darkness that comes after, right? We are introduced in these chapters to the darkness that comes after. That was something in general that was a theme I noticed in these chapters, that talking about the flaws of the Dunyain, how they were, not all that they believed they were, and that they were prone to the same flaws as the rest of the people, which I have been saying, and am gratified to see the books acknowledging. And it increasingly makes me wonder what the fuck Kellhus's plan is. But yeah, what the no God, I guess, yeah, is the God's darkness that comes after. Maybe it also came before. We don't know what it is, I guess, at this point. If ever we find out.
Yeah. But that was pretty cool. The no God living outside the inside and the outside.
Yeah.
It's like
The most outside.
it's kind of like this antimatter universe thing, right?
Yeah.
maybe he lives where the God of God lives.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, is if the 100 aren't aware of the no God, does that mean, and they are all supposedly splinters of the God of Gods, by extension, does that mean the God of Gods is not aware of the no God?
I feel like at least according to Kellhus, the God of Gods is just like the universe. Like it just is, as opposed to like a thinking being. Like it is the opposite of thinking. It just is. That's why it's an it. Like I feel like that's what he was telling Proyas. Like the God of Gods doesn't love, doesn't want, doesn't desire. That's why humans actually rather the opposite of God, the God of Gods, because they desire. They're driven by desire. They're driven by the darkness that comes before. Well, the God of Gods just exists. It simply is. It doesn't feast in the same way that the lower G gods do.
Yeah. The other gods seem more like, I don't know, like, old Greek or Roman or whatever Babylonian gods, sort of like they have personalities or whatever.
And they're like fucking parasites. They harvest souls. Pieces of shit.
Yeah, well,
To do
Like, it's
what
one thing
with,
to, like-
though?
What's that?
What do they do with the souls they harvest? What like?
They just eat them. They I mean, I don't know what happens. Do they shit them
They
out
gotta
afterwards?
eat,
I don't know.
right?
Make a sourdough.
Oh.
Yeah. You just need to eat, right? It's not their fault.
These freaking gods.
Oh man. And wait, there was one other Serwa thing I wanted to bring up here. I feel like I forgot though. Oh yeah, I remember. When she sings, the way she's torturing her torturer with her singing is because he thinks that she's singing like his wife. And well, I suppose he doesn't know that she dreams the non-man in her whatever the Seshwata dreams. Maybe that's why she knows what his wife was like. But then has Seshwata met every single one of the non-men enough to, for her? But she's also Dunyain. I guess she could do some good old-fashioned extrapolation. Okay.
That's what I thought it was. It was the Dunyain in her. That's what was performing. She was, because he said that she got better. She didn't start out singing like his wife, and so I think maybe she started singing, and then she did her Dunyain shit and read what she needed to, and like figured out how to change her voice, and did all of that, and happened to sing the right song, which she probably did get from Seswatha, as you said, right? And then saw that, oh, that this song had a particular effect, so I'm going to continue to sing it. But it is interesting. I think thematically it's very interesting that the singing these old powerful songs, the music, right, and the stories in them have this profound impact on these senile non-men. It's thematically very interesting. Even if I do have moments where I'm like, really? She's stopping them from torturing them by singing at them? Okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're like, well, if we torture her, then she's not going to sing anymore, right? I
No,
guess.
right. I mean, exactly. I get
I guess
it.
they don't have too many entertainment. Like, it's given
That's
what's happening there, it's pretty bleak. So any
that's
chance
fair.
of something, yeah.
Yeah, it brings them pleasure, right? Makes them even fleeting pleasure. And no, you're right. I mean, it's not unreasonable when you think about how horrible their lives are.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, maybe song has a special place because like they even mention like the song has fled the mountain, and like there's multiple references to song in the Disturbance chapter, so maybe it's like a special thing in non-man culture.
True.
That makes sense. Are we ready to talk about Ishwal? Or do we want to talk about Kelmomus having a fit because he realized everything is pre-planned?
No, let's go to Ishwal. I have strong positive feelings about Ishwal, even though it wasn't overly momentous, but it was still tense and full of interesting character drama. And the opening dream was fucking crazy.
Love the dream.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yes. In general, awesome. Seeing Kelmomus, seemingly the real story of how he died, and kind of getting a new perspective on that. Very cool. It is increasingly unclear to me if he's actually prophesying or just like losing his mind. That said, that was Kellhus he saw, right? And not who did he think it was? He thought it was someone else.
Well, did he? I'm trying to remember.
Or maybe he just didn't identify who it was.
Well, he just said it's one of my like an Anasarimba, right?
Right. That was
correct.
Right? Like that was Kellhus. He had the beard plaited in a different way.
It must be like the two decapitated heads. Like,
exactly.
Who
Two
else?
heads, right, exactly. And then the crown on the god's head was described as four-horned, and we're told Ajokli has four horns. He's the four-horned brother 1,000 times. That was not Gilgael. That was Ajokli holding Kellhus in his hand.
Well,
so Ajokli is playing some games.
Someone almost thinks it's Gilgael. So.
I know, and I think he's wrong. I just think he's straight up wrong.
Okay.
Because again, one, I mean, the number one, the thing I'm hinging this entire theory about is the four-horned crown. That immediately stood out to me. Gilgael has never been associated with that, and we were repeatedly, I mean, literally the entire time, like every, how was I say Sammy? Every K letter Kelmomus chapter scenes calls him the four-horned brother, right? This could not be a more clear connection in my mind. And actually, now that I'm even mentioning aloud that it's Kelmomus who continuously thinks of him that way too, right? And who has this great fear of Ajokli. Seems like that's another interesting parallel, right? That his namesake had this vision. Presumably he had this vision, and this isn't just Akamian tripping. I don't know what it means, other than Ajokli has plans for Kellhus, or Ajokli is fucking around with Kellhus. I don't know. Maybe Ajokli is like the big bad. I mean, it seems like the no god obviously is, but like clearly there's something going on, and he's scary. The way he's described is terrifying, assuming that is Ajokli, and I feel very confident it is.
Could they both be the same god, like different names, same god?
I wondered that too. I was wondering, but pretty sure that in the first trilogy, we get a number of gods listed in the appendix, and they are distinctly different.
Maybe they're brothers. That's why they look similar.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I don't know. Yeah, what the look, what all that deal is. I mean, maybe Gilgael does have four horn crown, but if that's the case, Bakker fucked up because he's not mentioned that once. And there's one clear god who has four horns, and it just seems. I feel like he wants us to make that connection. Like I'm not like pulling this out of my ass. Like this is one thing where I feel very confident about.
Am I imagining, or is Gilgal described maybe at some point with antlers or something? Or maybe is it like there's a messenger of the gods, like in one of the dreams of Kellhus, that has like antlers or something on his head?
You know what? I think you're right. I think Gilgael does have antlers. Now that you mention that, I feel like that does come up.
So I wonder if he's playing with like, oh, they look like antlers or horns, so it's kind of like trying to make us confused or something. I don't know.
On 217, the vision's eyes were fury, his hair the tangle of warring nations, and his teeth were as whetted blades. A crown gleamed above his brow, 4 golden horns clutched in the arms of 4 noble virgins the spoils. Bones and bodies clotted with the ravines of his grim expression, and his cloak smoked with the burning of fields. It's fucking great, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's why I thought it was Gilgal, because it says like all the 4 horns like held by the 4 like spoils, which is sort of suggesting that the spoils are like personifications. I don't know, like nymphs or something, personification of the spoils of war, right? Which like people are talking about in legends or something like that.
I'm with you in that I think he is described with language that sounds very warlike, that I would associate with a war god rather than with the Jokli. That said, I just feel like the 4 horn, like, it's possible that Kelmomis, he's seeing this, he's dying. He is interpreting it, right? We're seeing what he thinks of it, right? So he may be misinterpreting the weird, trippy god vision he's seeing, right? So these 4 spoils of war virgins could be, any number of things in actuality that he, is viewing them that way. I mean, like if he looks at them, right, like what is he actually seeing is kind of what I'm thinking, and like, is that just like, are we supposed to take that as like an objective, like this is what those 4 women are, or is it like this is what he believes they are, right? If that makes sense.
Disguise or something too, right?
Right. Yeah. But I'm right there with you in terms of like certainly he is described like a war god, a very scary war god. But again, the 4 horns, that just seems so distinct to me. But you make a good point, which is I do think Gilgael is described as being antlered. I think it comes up in the first trilogy more often than it has in this one. Gilgael hasn't really come up a lot.
True.
So I had a thought about this section. We are supposedly, this is Akamian dreaming from the perspective of the king instead of Sishwata, right? Like we've seen the scene before, but we've seen it from the other side. And right now, what has been added to this vision, because we are in the king's perspective, is the view of this person who's going to come in the future. But we still don't know why the king is saying the things he's saying. Like, what is he hearing that is making him say these things? I feel like if we were in the king's perspective, we should know. Are they just like, is he withholding information from us right now? Or like, did Akamian see all of that and we just don't know about it? It's not on the scene? Or did he not even hear? Like, why?
That's a great point.
I assumed like the information was sort of transmitted, like, in some ways, like the god is just making him understand, I assume. But you're right, it doesn't say, because I did double check when you said it. It's like, does he actually say that? Not really. And also, what's the purpose? Why would the god show him that? Like, what's the purpose of it?
So that's the other. Okay. First, I didn't notice the Kellhus lookalikeness here. So thank you both for pointing that out. But given that, is it like literally Kellhus traveling back in time now that we know like all time exists all at once? Or is it a
Well, he
prophecy?
would have to be a god to do that, though.
I mean, he's been to hell apparently, and
Yes.
he's having conversations with what the stick behind with the head on your back. What, there is a stick on.
Head on a pole.
Yes.
There's a head on the pole behind me. Yeah.
And there were things in there that and his, I don't think it was just a delusion when he said he's bigger than everything, he's practically equivalent to the god of gods. I feel like Kellhus is beyond delusion, so that might actually mean something, is my point. So where was I going with that? So Kellhus traveling through time. Oh yeah, okay, I have a new point to bring up. Just keyword prophecy. Remind me, please, when we finish talking about this subject.
Well, I think you're making an interesting point that, like, you know, what if the end game for Kellhus is apotheosis? And so, like, in some way, I mean, because we've speculated before about, like, well, how do these gods exist? Like, are they gods like in, you know, like the gods in a lot of fantasy stories, Malazan, Dungeons and Dragons, like a lot of them start out as mortals and ascend in some way, you know, through weird, you know, great events and becoming famous and starting to become worshipped, and, like, you know, it's weird magic metaphor stuff. And I, you know, maybe he does die, but he dies and in the end, you know, rises up and becomes more. Or, I mean, fuck, maybe he's the no god and he dies and this whole story has been showing how the no god was born, you know, and we're just like watching that slowly happen. And that explains his connection with the no god. I'm just throwing shit at the wall. I don't necessarily believe any of it. My own personal thought is that Kellhus is full of shit, and that the whole buildup of this entire series is to make the point that while he is insanely competent, he also is just as full of shit as every other human being. And he just doesn't realize that because he's drunk his own Kool-Aid. And he is crazy, maybe, in his own way. But that said, maybe he goes all the way, and yeah, he rises up and becomes, you know, the most terrifying thing imaginable.
He seems to have a plan.
He definitely seems like he has a plan. I do not doubt that he has a really complex, badass plan. The question is, you know, what will become of it?
And we might argue that right now he might be the person that knows the most of everything, because it seems like the gods are also limited, but he doesn't. I guess he doesn't have that limitation. So he probably knows more than anyone else.
Or is it just the shrunk meat?
Maybe
The meat has taken.
Proyas says he's gone crazy too, right?
Yeah, that was a question I had before Proyas thought about it. Was like, how does it affect Kellhus? Like, is he able to like ward that off with his Dunyain training, or like, because it seems like it just affects you fundamentally on a genetic level, and part of his Dunyain shit is genetics, we've learned. So
maybe he's like Paul and Dune, and he synthesizes the proteins of a meat to make it not affect him.
Yeah, that cellular, transmuting that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something else about prophecy, Varsha?
Yeah. Did we already talk about? Well, this was way back in the second book, I think, when the consult says we should follow the letter of the prophecy, even the fake ones. And then someone else mentioned in Ishterabint, I think one of the non-men said, was it, I forget, someone mentioned a prophecy in these chapters. Was it the guy talking to Sorvil? Did he say, you have been prophesied? But
yes.
So far, the only prophecy we've been following is the one of Kelmomus saying Inanna Surimbor will be back at the end of the world. But apparently there are other prophecies in action. I don't think we talked about that yet.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I hadn't actually thought about it this way, but like the whole idea that the White Luck Warrior is going to kill Kellhus, that's a prophecy, right? Like, what we've been told there. It's not been laid out in kind of the classic, Oracle of Delphi way, but that very much is a prophecy. So maybe, considering the gods can't see the no god, maybe that's incorrect. Although, if anything, it seems to me like they, help raise the no god again by killing Kellhus. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what other prophecies. That's interesting. I didn't remember that passage.
Yeah, I think there's just been mention of prophecy. We don't know who made said prophecy, if that's the right verb for prophecy. But
I do love a false prophecy. That's one of my favorite tropes.
Maybe this one is false. Maybe it's Kellhus making his own prophecy.
Well, I definitely do think Kellhus' stuff is false, so that's fair.
Yeah. It would be quite fun if it was him, because it was like he used the prophecy to become who he is to go back to make the prophecy.
Right. You're right. It is. He in some way makes the prophecy real by even though it's false. It's not divine. through his sheer will and intelligence, he makes it real. I mean, but it seems like his sorcerer stuff. I don't know if that's not a prophecy, but that they're still damned. So clearly he is just lying. What other prophets or oracles do we have? Who is predicted things?
some of the gods or priests, maybe. I don't think we've encountered anyone who's like we don't even have seer type characters.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Is like what seer characters do we have? We don't have any. I mean, Kellhus. Kellhus is he's like the one. He sees visions of the future that are undoubtedly real, but he doesn't exactly like prophesize about them.
Well, he does in its own way.
I guess I'm just thinking of like in the Warrior Prophet, for example, when he has like his vision of the future that ends up becoming true.
Yeah.
It's not like he goes around like telling everyone like there's going to be a man who will hold a decapitated head above him against the setting sun or whatever. It's like he sort of just like tells people what he predicts. Like his plan, basically what he needs to move his plan forward.
That's an interesting idea, actually. Like a prophet that gets revelations from the gods, but uses them for his advantage. It doesn't actually.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's what the other prophets did in this world.
Yeah, you've Fane and Inri Sejanus. Fane, I feel like Fane knew what's up. I don't know how he figured it out, but like the gods suck. They are demons. Screw these guys. At the same time, it almost seems like you kind of have no choice but to worship them. Like are all the Phanim just SOL? Like, are they just all going to hell? Do they just have no chance?
I wonder if there's a way of bypassing it or something. I don't know, because I guess the solitary god is kind of like the one god, maybe. Like maybe there's a way of getting
not worship the gods and just worship the god of gods.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So it has to be like what prophets do the consult have? And because they were the one who were talking, the Soma guy, the skin spy, and was it Orang or Orax? One of them was talking to this guy, and it's like and the prophecy apparently had something to do with Mimara. All the prophecies must come true, even the fake ones. I am sure I'm misquoting that, but that was the effect.
I think it's
Yeah. I remember. I remember that now that you say that. That was a cool scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what's up with like what they intend for Mimara. That's definitely a continuing question mark. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't think we talked about it before, and it's been interspersed very gently without drawing attention to itself. I think it will become important, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's gotta. I mean, that's gotta be something.
So, Ishwal, the survivor, Mimara wanting Akamian to kill them because she's finally convinced of Kellhus's damnedness. What do you guys think of
His damnness.
Damn Kellhus.
of Akamian saying, "Oh, cool, yeah, we got this part. Now let's go intercept the Great Ordeal and go take a good look at Kellhus."
He really has the worst plans. Like, for a very
He really
smart
does.
guy, I know. I did think that was sort of like bleakly funny that he was like, "Well, we came all this way. We got what we came for, and sort of. So now we're gonna go look at Kellhus.
Yeah.
I want you to see him with your own two eyes."
It felt very Kamian-like though, right?
Yeah.
Especially, or like how frustrated Mimara is with him and his reasoning, and how for him it's different. Like, oh, I can't kill them, but I mean, he did kill a bunch of people, even indirectly, all the time. But for him, it's different than straight up killing someone.
It was interesting to seeing him finally kind of turn around and realize, shit, Kellhus is our only hope. At this point, like I can't just destroy him. And Mimara now is the one who's like, no, fuck it, he's damned. Ruin them all. It was an interesting turn there that did feel very appropriate for both of their characters.
Yeah, I just wish they killed the Dunyain though, because we're gonna be trouble. You know that.
Yeah. It's just like leaving Kelmomas alive. It's like
Leave Crab Hands alone. He's fine.
Crab Hands.
I love that.
He's a little boy. I feel bad. I mean, it's like Kelmomas. I just haven't seen him be evil enough yet. And I know that's going to come because he's already had moments where I'm like, ooh, you really don't see people as people. Oh, no. Crab Hands.
I love hearing about the battle, though, and kind of how they survived. But I did think it was curious that they mentioned the Absolute has fled.
Is Kellhus Absolute? Is that why?
I don't know.
No chance. That dude doesn't know up from down.
And I guess, like we know now the battle took like decades or something, right? Like it went on for a long time. But so I guess when I can't remember, when the Shrank left, is it because of the Great Ordeal, like drawing them away? Is that what happened?
Oh, interesting.
Does it match with the timing? I was thinking like it must be very, because otherwise why would they suddenly start going away? But maybe not. I'm not sure.
And
oh, yeah, that adds up actually. Yeah, I hadn't considered that.
And they must have gotten there because, like, Kellhus is at least indirectly responsible for that, right? Because we know end of the first series, the Consult were obsessed with figuring out who the Dunyain were, and apparently they found out by now and went to destroy them.
Yeah.
So the child, is he really Kellhus's grandson? Or did he just pick up a random kid and is like, yep, you're my son now?
I think it's that.
Okay.
That's how I read it. It is just a little random little Dunyain boy who I guess was orphaned, and in the battle he picked him up and raised him. Which is one of those like very, like, he didn't need to do that. That's not going to help him find the absolute. So that is a distinctly like very human choice. He I don't know that he necessarily sees that, but like he did that out of compassion, or a sense of community, like something very human and vulnerable inside him made that choice because he did not need to save that kid. Like there was no more Dunyain after this. And it wasn't helping him personally, achieve the absolute. So I again, these Dunyain, they're full of shit.
It almost seemed when they describe the battle, they talk about how when the enemies came that they went into the labyrinth, And even after having trained there and survived there, and it was a kind of a rite of passage, they got lost, and it's almost like they became complacent. Like they weren't the same. They kind of they weren't Dunyain the way that we know Kellhus, because they felt like they were kind of vulnerable, which was a little weird.
Exactly. I mean, I think, how I interpreted that was like they got scared. Like it just finally like broke them, that coming up against the strong. I mean, the same way you see in the survivors, like in his POV, he's basically like criticizing the Dunyain's point of view about everything, which I was not expecting after him being like, did my father, achieve the absolute at the end of the previous Ishwal chapter. But like it was like them realizing that it didn't matter. All the thing basically was like, why do we care about meditating all this if you can just be killed off by monsters, which is extra interesting considering the original Dunyain were refugees, that their whole origin, it's like they just came full circle, that they were like, you forgot, you kind of, like you said, you got complacent, but weirdly, your complacency was thinking you could just hide forever, thinking that, oh, we can just meditate and commit, horrible atrocities in peace and no one will ever find us. And it's like, well, no, sorry, tough shit. The world exists and nothing stays hidden forever.
What was the line from the first one? Cannot raise walls against what has been forgotten.
Yeah. Oh, great line and great point there, Steve Swatha.
I had my moments. I want to write that name till everyone's tired of me.
Until the name is tired of you, you said?
One or the other. Until Crab Hands comes for me in my sleep.
Crab Hands. I'm weirdly attached to them. I'm not gonna lie. I don't trust them, but I'm falling for. I think I just pity them so much. They're like the last survivors of their people. Like Kellhus isn't really one of them anymore, and they've got the weird like father-son thing. That like in the road, but in their own like fucked up Dunyain way. I'm weirdly attached to them. I'm not gonna lie.
You might be onto something there. Might be a McCarthy thing.
Interesting.
And interestingly, this last Dunyain child is probably going to get more parenting than any of them ever got.
It's so true. I wonder what effect Mimara will have on them, if any. I feel like they've never had a woman actually talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, and now that the survivor is kind of like, oh man, we were full of shit. Like, is she gonna be able to impact him? Like, what? I mean, we know literally women did change Kellhus in some sense. Yeah. He did get attached to Serwa at least somewhat, and Esmenet.
We're getting enlightened. I guess first step is like, oh, people are people too. I mean, second step is like, oh, women are people too.
So on that, I think it was you, Carl, you brought up during the Blood Meridian discussion that McCarthy is writing about what the world looks like when there are no women in it, or like when the women are discounted, sort of. So do you think that's kind of what the Dunyain are, given what we just found out about the complete lack of women in their society?
I do think it is probably a very intentional choice on Bakker's part. And what little I've read of him interviewing outside, I do think he doesn't have a very positive view of men. And I do think that probably comes out in this.
Maybe it would have been useful for the Dunyain to have a couple of women to tell them, maybe this is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
There's a better way of doing things, maybe.
This could have all been avoided.
I definitely think that there is a missing femininity there, right? That they kind of corrupted and just made the whale. I mean, what a horrible thing.
Yeah.
Just horrible.
I don't know why, but that whole like everything hell-bent on one single, absolute and everything to a purpose. It's very like masculine, sort of. You know what I mean? It doesn't, a lot of things feel like it's missing, like you said, like like a female sensibility or something to it, right?
There's definitely a sense of balance that I feel like is missing in
Yeah.
their society. I mean, not that the other societies outside of it are particularly balanced and healthy, but um,
And Kellhus did start the schools for the witches, which didn't exist before. So
it is, yeah, that is interesting.
Kellhus is all about equal rights.
It's also, isn't it also curious what it says about, I guess, the genetics in this world? Apparently, the men are the logical and intelligent ones, because given the reasoning of like putting things to use, if they could, in theory, breed women also to the same Dunyain levels and also have the whale mothers. But apparently they didn't. It seems clear that they only had the whale mothers. So either the Dunyain had a strange fallacy in their reasoning where they only thought men have the logical reasoning, whatever it is they were optimizing for in their breeding, or that's it. That's how the world works here.
I guess it would have been a bit hard for how much they interbred like for women to do anything else, sort of like at that point. I'm sure at the beginning, no, but like at the end point, they're like could they do anything else really?
Maybe the
know.
women were bred to, I don't know, reproduce more frequently, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's kind of
Yeah,
like you take a pug and you're like, well, I'll make him be a farm dog or something. Maybe because it's so interbred that it's like,
I think, yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying, Dan, is kind of what the Dunyain were thinking. I think it is a flaw. Like, I think it hurt their society in major ways. But they were like, well, if we know that we have to breed as quickly as possible, as many people, we just need to pump out babies. And so they were like, well, the men can't do that. So, tough shit. The women have to become whale mothers. It's sort of the like necessary aspect there of incubating the babies, right?
it would be ironic if like what they're missing to get the absolute is like a women also doing their training and stuff like that.
Yeah. The secret sauce.
Maybe
Yeah, maybe.
Serwa will hit the absolute and prove them all wrong.
Maybe.
That would be crazy. Fucking Serwa.
I'm starting to like her. I didn't before because she was being so hard on Sorville, but now that I know that was for a reason, I think I like her now.
Sarah is kind of like the more one of the more sort of relatable, especially because we get like the more flashbacks of her childhood. I think like her also Cayutas kind of right. They seem a bit more balanced than the other ones, right?
They're definitely more
Cayutas-
balanced, like, yeah, emotionally.
Yeah. I mean, you remember when way back in the judging eye, Esmenet bemoans how all of her children, like most of her children, can't love. But Serwa apparently could, but Kellhus sent her away to witching school.
Yeah.
So I was looking forward to meeting her, but then she was this mean jerk. So finally, though, I think, I don't know, it could still go south. But I'm starting to like her now.
I feel like she's still like really cruel. Like I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like her as a character, and like I don't want her to die necessarily. I'm not at the point where I'm like I am with Kel Momus, where I'm like fucking kill that kid,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just got the sense that she's still very callous. Like she doesn't feel. Or I mean, I guess she does feel bad for Sor, or is like confused emotion, like because she starts like crying, right, and it seems like she like loses control when she's like confronts him, like, why do you love me? You shouldn't love me, you should hate me. But yeah, you make a good point, right? She has orders from her dad that she has to follow, right? So
And they are trying to save the world, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think I had been as sympathetic to that as I probably should have been. That's a good point.
Yeah, she feels like a bit of a sacrifice for a higher cause at the moment, given that she's not actually being tortured. She's the one doing the torturing, apparently. but uh, even from Sorville's point of view, I didn't get it before, and I still don't, why he so desperately wants to save her after all that. But
She's hot.
Yeah,
That's what he says like 1 book ago.
that's definitely like how I just read it in that very straightforward, like he's just a horny teenager who can't help himself way, and also has some innate goodness where he wants to like protect, you know, in this case obviously a woman, but just like he has this protective urge. But I wonder if Yotwar is part of that, if she in some ways is driving him to feel these protective urges.
yeah, that's possible.
Okay, so something while we're talking about gods fucking around, I had a thought while we were sitting here, which is, so Kellhus is talking to a voice, right? I mean, there's seemingly he's connecting in some way with the no god, but now I'm thinking that voice is Gilgale, which just occurred to me, and I don't think he knows it's Gilgale. If I'm interpreting that vision of Kelmomis correctly, which I feel pretty confident I am, then that's got to be the voice that's talking to Kellhus, right? It's wait, did I say Gilgale? I meant Ajokli.
Yeah.
Yes, I meant Ajokli, right? The vision of Kelmomis seeing what he believes is Gilgale, but I believe is Ajokli. I believe the voice that must be talking to Kellhus is Ajokli. And I it makes sense, right? That like if that is driving Kellhus to do all this crazy shit like eat strong, then I mean, maybe that's his Dunyain brain, but maybe it's like the little trickster god whispering in his ear, like, hey, do this thing. And it's like literally the devil on his shoulder, right? And it's making, him make all these decisions that maybe are self-destructive, right? And cause chaos, right? And Ajokli is the god of chaos. And, I feel like there's a lot that makes sense there now.
But I think like he's not following that anymore. I think he like the last time he talked with Price, he's like yeah, he's crazy. Like I don't know, I keep getting these voices and like they make no sense.
That's true. You're right. He is like trying to go against what they say, right? That's a good point. Because the voice tells him to like kill everyone, like help make the no god or something, and he's like, I don't know about that.
We'll see.
So, Proyas and Saubon. Well, I think that's another scene I had a bit of difficulty with. What was he moaning at Kellhus about to give him the honor of what? What did he want to do? Lead the army? Is that what he was asking for?
He wants to go to Dagliash to... It's kind of like hold the army or something, right? Like we're going to send a bunch of people there to just hold the heights. So to funnel all the strength towards the schoolmen. I guess it's like a very dangerous, obviously mission, right? So
yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I really
wants to die.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, Price wants to die.
Yeah,
he's broken. He's done.
That scene was really cool because when he asked for that, I didn't know the details of what he was asking for, but it sounded like he was asking to have the opportunity to die. And but then what he was thinking to himself did not quite match up to that. So I liked it when Saubon told him, this is why you're doing this. And he's like, oh, is that what's going on in my head? I loved that exchange. It was pretty cool.
It's wild how wise Saubon has become. Like he actually can like read through people's shit. Like he kind of seems to understand how the world works more than a lot of people. It is so weird coming from how we were introduced to him, where he was just this blustering, like he seemed like a blustering buffoon, right? And now he, maybe he was always this wise, but I kind of feel like maybe with the years
I feel like he understands, he just doesn't give a shit. right?
Yeah, right.
It's like he doesn't care about morals or all those things, right? He says that. He just, I don't, that's not a problem for me because I'm following Kellhus because he's strong, right? I don't care about anything
Right.
else. I'm not like you, right? Just like, yeah, the
This
relationship
guy.
is like very interesting, like just weird, supportive, and like, I don't know, different
I
aspects.
like
And
it.
yeah,
Their weird fucked up buddy cop movie in the apocalypse.
yeah.
Yeah. Anything else in that Proyas chapter? I also can't say I fully understood what was going on with the raft and the sea
They
and their
built a raft
strategy.
that was floating around,
And
like
they were standing
flying
on it.
raft. Yeah, we were all standing on the raft and we were flying in the sky and looking at things. And I don't know, Kellhus was doing his
It was
They were
speech.
flying?
flying?
Yeah, yeah, it was a flying raft. He did it.
I
Yeah.
thought they were on a giant lake,
Mm-hmm.
and the raft was on a giant lake.
I thought sea, but yeah, sure. Body of water.
Am I wrong? No, it's flying raft.
How the fuck is the raft flying?
Kellhus is
Kellhus.
making it.
He threw
Well,
ships,
Oh, it's just magic. Like they're
apparently.
just like, I didn't know they could do that. Okay, I mean, I guess that makes sense because the non-men have
Yeah.
flying cars, but like, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Some parts I was not sure if he was showing them like, I don't know, using like a glamour to show them like different parts. Because like there's that part in which there's the wall of Dagliash behind Kellhus, and it's kind of like they're rotating around the city, like in this super, like cinematic way, and then Kellhus like facing them doing the all his speech. But I don't know if that was like there was like I don't know, like a TV behind him, sort of like he was showing they were actually around. Yeah.
But I also got
Yeah,
the sense
yeah.
that the raft was held down by like scaffolding.
Well, after they put it on a scaffolding so that he could talk to all the people,
Oh, okay. Okay.
right?
Okay. Makes
I'm
sense.
gonna double check.
yeah, I didn't know what was going on there. I was just like, oh, Noah's Ark, cool,
Yeah.
and moved on.
I thought Noah's Ark, and then I was like, what are they going to put on it? Like shrank bears?
Yeah, exactly. bring the just two Strank on as a treat.
Yeah, I think that was it with the Kellhus chapter. And are we ready to move on to the Kelmomus one? And
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
his
This fucking kid.
so the realization that he had that everything is predetermined. What is the point of all the gods if everything is predetermined? Like, first he could be bullshitting and that it's not. Maybe he's just freaking out over nothing. But let's say that it is true, because I guess determinism / free will is something that's being explored in the series. So if that is true, the only god that makes any sense is fate. Or like, who's
Well-
predetermining everything?
Well, why does someone have to predetermine things? Maybe it's just how things are.
Then what are the gods doing? What are they trying to...
Just living their best life.
What are they trying to influence? What is the point of Yatsvar? What is happening with Sorvi?
I mean, I do think that on some level it's just a paradox, right? Like any time travel thing inevitably falls into, the gods see everything at once, and so that they are acting in some sense at the same time, all at once.
Yeah.
And so that means that everything is kind of predetermined. If all of time is always true all at once, then,
Yeah.
it is deterministic. I mean, it has to be. That's the only way that the way the gods function makes sense.
Just how it is, I guess, right?
Yeah. It certainly is one of those things that if you try to think about it too much, your brain will hurt, because we can't fathom that, because that's not how we view the world. But yeah, I think it's just a paradox. I think that's just like how it is.
Maybe what if there's like a different time in the outside compared to the inside? So the gods of the outside can see all the time in the inside together, but the time in the outside is still flowing in some way. You know what I mean?
They have like a separate time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting idea. I
That's the only way that it could work, I guess. Like the only way I can understand in a way that doesn't break my brain.
well, so the way I kind of understand the paradox of it is that like, and this still breaks my brain if I think about it too hard, but is that like the gods, like people, are acting out of some, you know, something that drives them, right? But they still have their own, like, they're just always going to do these things. Like, it's just, it has always been this way. And they perceive that, and, you know, that's just still how it is. So in some way, that they're just as blind as people are, because, you know, even though they can kind of see all of time, they are still, by that same token, always going to have done the thing that they do.
Yeah.
So, you know, they may be motivated in some way, but it's still just a simple fact that they are slaves to
True.
the nature of the universe in the same way that humans
I guess
are.
maybe like when the universe was created, everything was created at the same time. It's kind of like looking at a painting,
Right.
like a comic book. Everything was already done, so there's nothing to. It's not like something is happening, right?
Right.
It's like a static. I guess it's a very static view of the universe.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
But do we really know much about the outside? I mean, what is the outside?
I mean, that's a great point. Yeah, what the fuck is the
Somewhere
outside?
Kellhus has been.
Where there's heads
Well,
on
okay, so
poles.
another theory that came to me while we were talking was, what if when Dan was describing the no God is outside the inside and the outside, what if the no God is, and I think Varsha, you said like the antimatter thing, right? What if no God is from this like other, like, just a completely other like reality,
Yep.
and is like,
Parallel universe or something.
Yeah.
right, exactly, and is destructive because of that, because it's outside its own natural reality. Like, I'm thinking this series already deals with like sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we have aliens, so why not, you know, multiversal beings?
That makes sense. It's almost like if the God of gods, and I had this thought too when you were talking about how the God of gods is just the universe. Is the no God just another universe? And
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and it's like leaking through, and by killing enough, they like make the barrier between the universes thin, and so then that other universe just like, yeah, leaks through and is destructive. It's certainly, whatever it is, it seems to. I mean, I think what adds to this, either, you know, I think these theories sort of can be connected in a sense, is that, like, you know, it's unnatural. It's not supposed to be in this universe. So its mere presence is what causes, you know, all the stillbirths and everything, which we know to be true, right? And so it's not like it's some kind of magical thing as we might think of it. It's not like a ritual spell thing. It's just like, this thing by existing is wrong, and so everything around it starts to break.
so, yeah, I think that makes sense. I like the antimatter comparison, because just by coming in contact with it, you could destroy a whole bunch of things.
Exactly.
And
No, all credit to you for that, because as soon as you said that, that's when like things started clicking in my brain for that theory. Because exactly, antimatter, I think, is a great reference point.
And it makes sense about like the whole parallel universe thing, in the sense of, okay, regardless of that, the no God has to be some technological thing, right? Like that uses the physics of the world rather than the magic, because the Inkoroi, they don't do magic, right? They just do technology.
Yeah.
And we don't know, like, sometimes magic is just a variation of the physics. It's not that. It's the sorcery they do here is literally that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there does seem to be a blurred line somewhere, because the dragons seem to be assuming what we were talking about with like hell is inside them, assuming that is true to some degree, that like the technic can access the, I guess at least it can access the outside. So maybe that's not magic, is technology could theoretically do what magic can do as well. So maybe never mind.
We also know this world is special somehow, right? Because every other world the Inkoroi went to, they destroyed and dwindled the population down to 144,000, which they haven't managed to do on Ierva yet.
Yeah.
So is it the access to hell that makes it special? Just nodding wisely, sagely, if you will. And Espinet's POV, I agree with you, Carl. I could have done without that. I don't know what we got out of it.
She didn't do anything. Like, it was literally just like, I'm here and I feel kind of good about myself. I'm going to be delusional because why not, you know?
Yeah.
And let's talk myself up and, you know, oh, great. I'm divine, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, girl, whatever, you know? You could have thought about that as you actually did something rather than like sitting on your ass.
I mean, it does have a bit of a calm before the storm feeling, right? Like she's having herself a moment of quiet before,
that's definitely true.
I imagine, all hell breaks loose. And in one of the occurrences of Forsooth, she thinks that she hasn't killed the Scissorim. Like, she knows, right, that the guy is still alive? Or is she still deluding herself as much as she's...
Well, does she know he's alive?
Or was the... I mean, let me try and find it. Should be easy.
She definitely said she killed him, I think.
Yeah.
But
she does.
I don't know if that's what she thinks.
Kellhus missed that, but then in her POV by the balcony, in Sooth, sorry, not Forsooth.
In Sooth.
Wait, the last Scissorim. Oh yes, she hadn't even killed the last Scissorim. ... Not in Sooth. But yeah, we don't get any more.
I thought that meant like she didn't kill her herself. I guess it was like the arrow or someone else shot that killed him.
Makes sense.
Maybe, but.
Yeah, I feel like she'd be a lot
means.
less complacent if she actually knew the guy is not dead at the moment.
What does soothe mean there?
In reality, isn't that a Shakespeare? Like, I've encountered it in one Shakespeare play, but it's...
I know of like forsooth, but like in sooth, I don't know what that would mean.
In Sooth, In Sooth.
Like, I wasn't sure. I was like, is this a typo or
Yeah.
is this like just like another antique phrase? I don't know.
We just made up a word, just like Shakespeare.
Yeah, there you go. Listen, if it's good enough for Shakespeare, good for you, Bakker.
Is Forsooth one word? Because it's...
Yeah.
It's often written as one word.
Yeah, because every occurrence of it has Sooth as a separate word in this book. But the dictionary is saying it means intro.
Maybe it was separate at the origin.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were separate, and then I think they got combined. English is full of that.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Any other topics?
Can't wait for Kellhus to die. I'm kind of rooting for the Narndar. I'm not gonna lie. I want the White Luck Warrior to just kill this kid. I know we're gonna be stuck with him until the end of the fucking fourth book, though. Like, this is a character who is gonna survive until the bitter end, and I do think he'll die, but it'll be like right at the end of the series. I feel like
it's interesting that you're railing against him now, because this wasn't even a chapter where he was particularly annoying.
No, I'm not even enjoying watching him freak out that much.
That's
I gotta
true.
be honest. I'm like, it's just kind of pathetic. I'm just like, okay, like do something about it.
I was gonna say, I think, given, I guess, possibly where this is going with the exploration of determinism, I think if we had to have a character freak out over how everything is predetermined, I feel like it would have been painful to watch anybody else. But Kellhus, I got some joy out of it.
Exactly. He's like, yeah, you're doomed, kid.
Like, I don't even care that I do not like what this is saying right now. You're struggling through it. That's what I want to see.
Wah, wah, cry, little baby.
A poor little cannibal baby.
Yeah. He wears his own shit to sneak around in the dark.
Yeah.
I hate that kid.
Yeah,
Hate
you
it.
just know he's gonna make his mom sad. Just know it.
Oh, he's gonna make her so sad. That's the one thing that makes me hesitant to not like. That makes me not necessarily want to watch him die. You know, it's like, it's like, what?
Oh no.
I'm not.
Would it
gonna
be
go into
better
it,
if
but
he dies after his mom figures out he's a piece of shit? Or would it be better for Esme if he dies without her knowing? I don't know.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean,
I almost feel like the correct answer is C. Esmenet should die first.
Terrible answer.
wow. That got dark.
I just don't think she can handle it. I hate to say it, but I think Theliope is right.
Hmm.
She knew Indrilatas was broken, but she still mourned his death. Honestly, I can't tell if she really mourned his death or if she was following the motions of mourning a dead child. You know, like if she genuinely cared about him, given that she had him locked up.
No, she definitely loved him. I feel like he would have been dead otherwise. And on top of that, I don't think she would have reacted so heinously to make
And I think
if she
she
was
said
actually
at some
grieving.
point, like, to Maiden or someone, like, oh, that you took him away before he could, like, get better. Like, learn to reconcile his problems with, reality, I guess. So,
I think she was delusional, and I feel like that's how she would be about Kelnomis. Is she'd be like, well, he's probably not actually that bad, or I can fix him.
fix it.
You know, she definitely has an I can fix him attitude.
Yeah, to her detriment. Oh, I guess we're ready to do quotes then. I was almost going
Let's
to
do
wrap
it.
up without.
How dare you?
You've already told us a really good quote before, right?
Yeah,
That was a good one.
that was
yeah.
a good one. That was.
The only other one I have is from 227. Once they get Dan, that which comes after could determine that which comes before the impossible made manifest. The world was an arrow with one and only one direction, or so they had believed.
Yeah, all this stuff about the darkness that comes after, I thought was just really amazingly written. I loved that whole section. One of the epigraphs that I remember just kind of staring at, thinking about, trying to understand that I could not wrap my head around. The second one in chapter 8, better blind in hell than speechless in heaven. Anyone have any idea what that's trying to say there? Because I struggle to understand that.
The way I took it was that it's better to be blind to not see than to not be able to express yourself.
Okay.
That's kind of the way I took it. So it's better to not be able to see rather than be speechless or be unable. Yeah, I'm not sure. You like a lot of those epigraphs, you could take them in very dark directions.
Right.
I thought it was something like better to be in a shit place but still be able to influence things than to be in a good place but be, just at the mercy of whatever happens there. I don't know.
No.
Again, it's one of those things. It's like, oh, you read it, it's like, oh yeah, this sounds very smart. But when you think about it, it's like, I don't know
right.
what it means.
That was my reaction. I was like, oh, that's really deep. And then I was like, what is this saying? I did have the kind of like, it definitely sounds like Paradise Lost, right? Like this famous Satan quote of like, better to rule in hell than, be a servant in heaven. And that it has that color to it, but I wasn't sure like exactly what it was saying. I was like, okay, Sure, I'll be blind in hell, I guess.
Maybe he just wrote it like, oh, it sounds smart, and people will figure it out.
Yeah.
I think a lot of
Yeah,
that
the
is,
other
is
one I
meant to be
didn't
vague, though. I think it's just Bakker kind of wanted us to think. But sorry,
think.
Carl. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say the other one I could not wrap my head around was the song of truth is the cracking of desire. Only when men weep do they know. Only when men weep do they know. I like kind of got what that was going for, particularly considering this was like a holy book. But the song of truth is the cracking of desire. I have no idea
I
what
think
that
it means like, how do I say, like when you know the truth, like if you actually follow the truth, you can't follow what you want. Like you need to do what the truth says. You can't do what you want to do.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
So it's like it's
Yeah,
breaking.
like in the sense of
desire.
religion, it's like, when God tells you what to do, like you need to follow what God tells you, not what you want, I guess.
Okay. I don't know what my brain went weird, and I was thinking like the cracking sound of a whip for some reason, because you have the song. So I was thinking like it's another audible, like it's another sound basically. But that makes way more sense. I agree with you. I think it is like he just weirdly chose cracking instead of breaking, because that makes more sense. Like that's actually legible to me, with that
It
meaning.
feels a lot like all these things like, reading the Bible and trying to, interpret the
Right.
passages. It's very, very similar.
Yeah, that's true.
And some
We
of
can.
these are from the Yerva Bible equivalent thing, right?
Yeah.
Some of
They
these
are, yeah,
quotes.
literally Canticles 6:6, which I hadn't even noticed. 6:6. We're obviously inching towards the devil number there. I mean, that has to be intentional. I feel like Baker is playing games there.
Oh, I just remembered in the previous set of chapters, Kellhus, when he's trying to freak Proyas out with his origins, he says that the Dunyain started 2,000 years ago. So pretty much when they came to Ishwal, right? It's
Yeah.
not that they were a people who existed before. It's just, I don't know, they were lonely, so they started this weird project. It seems like.
I think they say it was like a very fringe sort of philosophical sect, like not super popular, and then
Hmm.
it really started going, I guess, at this
Okay.
point, I think. Something
Was
like
it
that.
was it the presence of the Anasurimbor that triggered this somehow? Because like the prologue started with this poor little Anasurimbor kid who was all alone and the
Yeah.
last surviving member.
I guess we don't know how the Dunyain got there. How did they know it was there? We don't know that, do we?
I don't know if they knew he was there. My thought was they just
Ah,
wandered and
okay.
then they found this place and they were like, "Oh,
Hmm.
sanctuary," and they went inside and they're like, "Oh, hi, little boy."
Yeah,
Don't worry, we're not gonna rape you. Like it's yeah. I don't know that it was
Yeah,
intentional.
possibly, yeah.
yeah, they may not have come there intentionally, but I'm wondering if the presence of because isn't it strange that 2,000 years later they still have primary Anasurimbor people? They probably bred off of that kid and his genes for 2,000 years.
I'm sure they're not 100% Anasturba, but probably a mix of everyone, right?
It is interesting though that like they held on to that, right? Like they remembered the Onasurimborn
Mm-hmm.
name. They weren't like, oh, that doesn't mean
Mm.
anything. Like they actively made a point of remembering that.
Yeah.
You would think the Dunyain would just not care.
You would think they
They would
wouldn't
move
even have
past.
names, right? You would think.
Exactly. It's it's interesting.
And there's also a mention of like the Anasurimbor being full-blooded or something in this section. Do I remember that correctly? There was some mention of full-blooded Anasurimbor and about the survivor and just the survivor. I guess I don't think we know that the kid is Anasurimbor, but yeah, full-blooded. Oh, Dunyain, son of Kellhus. Never mind. Okay, not. Yeah, okay, of Kellhus, not Anasurimbor. Anyway, that I thought that was interesting. The 2,000 years that they weren't sure it was a philosophical sect, but the breeding thing didn't start until they came to Ishwal.
Yeah. I guess it's 2,000 years enough time to interbreed. I guess dogs, yeah, we fuck them up in shorter time, so.
Yeah,
Fair
true.
Yeah.
Cool. Then let's do outros. Dan.
Yeah, I'm Dan. You can find me on Page Showing Forum and a lot of other places, if you can figure them out.
Wow. Okay, very mysterious. If you can figure them out. Okay, I'm Carl at Carl D. Albert on most social media or on PageStream as well. I am also Carl D. Albert.
Yes, I am Steve. You can find me on pagechewing.com, and you can also find me on all the Page Chewing podcasts, and of course, Speculative Speculations. And of course, I have to plug Carl's book because he never does. So go read Truth of Crowns. If you enjoy this series, you will like Truth of Crowns. If you like grief and sadness and awful shit happening, you will like Truth of Crowns. Go check it out.
Yes. And you can find me on the YouTube channel Reading by the Rainy Mountain and haunting the Page Chewing forums and the Speculative Speculations podcast too, where I have been neglecting to post our latest episodes, but more will come if you are one of the one listener we have.
And we appreciate the hell of that. Whoever you are out there, thank you.
Sorry for the wait. We'll get to it, but also appreciate you severely. But thank you so much for listening. We will see you in a week with the next set of chapters. I think it's just 2 chapters for next week. Thank you so much. Bye.